Hello, we are at Canepaneri Gallery. Today we are very excited to open the first solo show by Patrick Bailey. He's here with us today. And Patrick, welcome. This is your first solo show in Italy, actually in Europe. How do you feel about this?
I'm super stoked about it.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us a little bit what is this show about? I mean, these are all recent works you did in the past past 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's of course an exhibition of painting, but you know, it's not just about painting. I mean, can you tell us a little bit more? For example, now we are standing in front of this painting. The title is Allegory of the Cosmos or Interrupted Spaghetti Dinner.
Yeah, Interrupted Lady and the
Lady and the Tramp. I'm sorry, the title is very long.
It is.
What are we looking at? Is this an allegory? Is this a dinner? What is this?
So, this is a painting of a ruined spaghetti dinner.
Yeah,
at night under the stars. So kind of just takes like sort of a stereotypical, at least for New York, like kind of an imaginary, like Italian dinner.
Candlelight dinner.
Exactly, at an Italian restaurant. And then, it just started off as a stupid idea. I kind of think of painting as a limited proposition, right? There's things that can be painting ideas and things that are best expressed in another form.
Yeah.
And so the way I approach what feels like a painting idea to me is to just stare at the canvas. And so this started off as a blank canvas. And I started making marks, and I thought that a circle would be a good idea. So I drew the circle, I drew another circle inside of it, and I just kind of kept going with it. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe this would be fun to make a mess. So I started thinking, what could be a mess?
Okay.
And what would be fun to paint? And I was like, a messy spaghetti dinner would be really fun to paint. Because it's just, I mean, it's sort of like an abstract, like a classic abstract painting.
Sure.
But it has this representational thing about it that very
signs,
much it fits in with the way that I make paintings. And
but then you decided not to go abstract, but to actually paint subjects, signs.
Right.
And,
exactly. And so exactly. So I have this sort of this thing that I have to follow up on. And so I decide, okay, it's going to be spaghetti. And so then I was like, well, that's kind of a silly idea to associate, exactly like you said, to make this abstract intention into a thing, a thing. And so I was like, okay, well, let's go one step further with this stupidity of that proposal, right?
Yeah.
And then to think about the way that paintings make meaning, to be interpreted. So we go up to it, we see it, okay, this is a spaghetti dinner. We expect more from it than that.
Always,
Right.
This is our background. We always expect a relation of allegory or,
The meaning can't just be a spaghetti. Then it has to be something more important. And so I was like, okay, well, let's force it to be about, an allegory of the cosmos, of the formation of the cosmos. So I put in the bowl at the center as if it's the sun, and the meatballs sort of orbiting around.
Planets.
And then maybe these little spaceships or comets, and everything is sort of centered around. And it's supposed to be a stupid idea. And in being that sort of forced second order interpretation and being a stupid idea about that, it kind of talks about the way that we make meaning by looking at any sort of painting or painting. And it makes fun of it lightly. And so in order to kind of continue that, I was thinking, okay, this ruined spaghetti dinner might actually, instead of just forcing the high interpretation on it, this allegory of the cosmos, it'd also be funny to recognize it as like that classic scene from Lady and the Tramp. But if they had, what would have happened if the owner of the restaurant had actually come out and seen two dogs eating at the table? So
as we understand from Patrick's words, all his paintings have multi-layered, they have different layers of significance, different layers of interpretation, and this is exactly what his focus is about. Not only this, but this is probably the main main subject of the exhibition, the relationship between sign and interpretation and all the scope of possibilities in between.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so...
And it's about me figuring out that too.
Yeah.
So like we've said, it started off with this thing which I generated it, but it became then a sign for me to interpret, right?
Yeah.
And so I interpreted it as spaghetti, and then I interpreted it as an allegory of the cosmos, and then I interpreted it as Lady in the Tramp.
And then we join you in this interpretation process.
Right, to think about the interpretive process.
Exactly.
And that's where the whole rest of the show kind of follows that too. So I jumped from Lady in the Tramp to do a portrait of Lady in the Tramp, right?
Yeah.
And so then we have the dogs over there.
We have the dogs, yeah.
Right. But again, it changes, and so I put them behind this fence, and I started thinking maybe they're guard dogs.
Yeah,
and
so police.
Right. So then we do a painting of a police helicopter, right? And because I did police, then I thought, okay, let's do a painting of weed.
Yeah.
And so then I did a painting of weed, and then I thought, let's do a painting of dealers.
Yeah.
But instead of weed dealers, they're
art dealers.
So the whole thing kind of is about this interpretation and then a reinterpretation of that.
Reinterpretation, yeah. So it's a very semiotic-based work. And so we're all invited to go beyond or behind the surface of these paintings and understand all the possible meanings and all the possible connection between them, but also between the sign, the image, actually the subject, and the possible interpretation behind it.
And just like with knowing that allegory in this painting is stupid or wrong, it's not like any sort of meaning that we could find on this might be stupid or wrong, but they're not.
They're not.
They're not. It's whatever. Just you may never think of Lady in the Tramp with this, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in is the way that you, as a viewer, make meaning on top of the signs that I've sort of left behind. So exactly. The whole show is an invitation for you to project your own meaning.
This is also a key word for this exhibition. Projection, and because Patrick uses projection in a formal way, in a technical way. He uses a projector to sometimes to realize these images. But projection is also meant, in your practice, as a projection of meaning and also projection of the viewer inside the work and a projection of yourself inside the viewer. Because as we were talking, we were saying before, also the presence of the author is impossible to avoid. So the authorship is the authorship is, of course, is present, but is managed. Lasciamo la parola a lui. You speak about this thing of the authorship.
Okay. So I think like it's sort of Isabella Ra has this great understanding of why people like painting so much comes down to basically what she thinks of as the vitalistic fantasy, that we can see the author through their painting. Even in paintings that don't look like they were made by an author. She actually has a very clever way of saying that these things even more relate back to the author, right? Because if they look like they made themselves, we know that they didn't make themselves. So they have a quasi-subjectivity, which points back to the author. It's very clever. And she calls all of these relationships to life vitalistic fantasy. And I liked that idea, but I just started thinking that it was a subcategory of something. And the subcategory of that, the category to which it fits into is an idea of projection. When we go up to a painting and we put meaning on it, that's a projection. And when we, as a viewer, as a maker, go up to a painting and put meaning onto it or images onto it, that's also a projection. And Isabella Gra going up to paintings as a categorical whole and saying that the reason we like them is because of the relationship that they have to their author is a projection. And so but that projection from my position, in order to make this thing, in order to do this, has to start from somewhere, especially as someone working in a representational mode. So what I'm doing is I'm recalling my own personal experience. And so these works relate to you know, the fact that I watched Lady and the Tramp as a kid, or that I have a certain understanding of, you know, a spaghetti dinner in New York City.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Or they come from somewhere. You know, these are
A
all
group of friends
a
in
group
your
of my
studio.
friends, exactly.
Yeah.
The bag of weed, you know, it all comes from
Sure.
a relationship that I have to my own life.
Existing scenes, existing things in your life.